With Pokemon Adventures Scarlet and Violet's manga already being underway, with 2 chapters on its belt, the chances of us getting a Legends Arcues arc are very low. However, that doesn't stop us from dreaming of what could have been. So in this video, I've decided to create potential teams for each of the Sinnoh dex holders. So with that said and done, let's get straight into things. First up, the rules. The Pokemon I give these guys have to either be Hisuian form Pokemon or new Pokemon entirely. For this scenario, I also want to say that these guys got transferred to the past, but they got to keep 2 of their Pokemon, being their starter Pokemon and their true star Pokemon. Mainly because of future plot reasons I want to make in a what if, but also because they're just their main Pokemon. So in other words, I'll be giving them all 4 Pokemon each. Starting us off, we have Diamond. The 2 Pokemon Diamond brings with him are Wig, the Torterra, and Lax, the Munchlax. I was tempted to evolve Munchlax into Snorlax now, but I think it's best to keep him the small little guy of the team. His first new team member will be Hisuian Typhlosion. Some of you may be wondering, why am I giving him another starter Pokemon? Well, that is something I'd rather explain in a separate what if series for this concept, but to put it simply, Diamond would get this Typhlosion as a Cyndaquil from the Galaxy team and Survey Corps, and eventually it would evolve into a Typhlosion. Out of all the starters, this one fits him the most, with the Pokemon being the most laid back looking and also aloof, just like Dia himself. The description of the Pokemon even reads, Hisuian Typhlosion has a very relaxed disposition and can be often seen staring into space. So with that, I think this Pokemon just works. Next up we have Hisuian Goodra. This Pokemon is another aloof looking Pokemon, and also has the trait of being slow, which is a common trait amongst Dia's team. Another reason I picked this Pokemon comes from its Pokédex entry, listing the Pokemon as being one that dislikes being alone, and is very clingy. Because of this, I could see Dia, the empath of the dex holders, being the perfect companion to understand and befriend Goodra, with a funny gag of it always hugging him, similar to Ash's Dragonite. Dia's next Pokemon would be Hisuian Avalugg. This big sturdy giant of a Pokemon once again fits the theme of being a slow and tanky Pokemon. However, another reason I chose this Pokemon actually has to do with the game's plot. In the Legends Arceus games, you have to calm down 5 noble Pokemon. These Pokemon are massive and also on a frenzy. And one of these 5 Pokemon is, you guessed it, Hisuian Avalugg. With the one in the games being so big you could probably build a house on it. This Pokemon is a descendant of another Hisuian Avalugg that was friends with the ancient hero of Hisui. So I can see Dia doing the same in befriending this Pokemon and catching it. That or he just catches a regular Hisuian Avalugg. The final Pokemon I'm picking to add to Dia's team will be Ursaluna. Finally, a new Pokemon. For this big fella, I could see him being a similar case to Avalugg, being that Dia could befriend and catch one, as this Pokemon is also one of the descendants of the ancient hero's Pokemon. Just like in the games, this Pokemon will allow for him to search for treasures hidden underground. Nothing too special on this one, just another big burly Pokemon that's perfect for Diamond. And now with Diamond done, we can move on to our next trainer, Pearl, the bossy and energetic best friend and also the determiner of the group. The 2 Pokemon Pearl will bring along with him will be Chimihiko, the Infernape, and Chahiko, the Chatot. In a similar fashion to Diamond, I've chosen to give him a Hisuian starter Pokemon, being Hisuian Samurott. Although this Pokemon is known for being unfair and heartless in battle, I think Pearl's determination could start the change in making cruel Hisuian Samurott into the more prideful Samurott we see in the present, by teaching it the right way to battle without relying on underhanded tactics. Next up we have Hisuian Braviary. Just like with some of Diamond's Pokemon, this Pokemon would also be a descendant, as we see in the games it helps you fly around, or if I'm being more accurate, glide around. Other than being a descendant of the ancient hero's Pokemon, another reason I chose to give him this psychic bird actually has to do with Black, the Unnovan dex holder. Although these 2 aren't the same characters at all, they share the similarity of both being fire dex holders and somewhat similar in personality. I think it'd be nice not to give him this mod. After Braviary, we have yet another descendant of an ancient hero's Pokemon, this Pokemon being Sneasler. It also acts as a new Pokemon. It being a fighting type suits Pearl pretty well in my opinion, and I can definitely see him owning one. This Pokemon, as well as Braviary, are Pokemon that actually prefer to live alone, so Pearl getting them would be a good contrast between his Pokemon of solidarity and Diamond's Pokemon who love being with people. The final Pokemon I've decided to give Pearl is Kleavor. This powerful Pokemon is meant to be representing the noble Pokemon of Pearl's team. This aggressive brute of a Pokemon fits Pearl's personality very well, with being head-on and straightforward, and Pearl commanding it to cut down everything in its path would be super sick to see. In fact, all of Pearl's new team members seem to be more slashing Pokemon than the punching Pokemon he usually has, like Weasel and Infernape. Well, except for Braviary. Last but not least, we have Platinum. Her 2 Pokemon that she would bring from the present would be her Empoleon and Rapidash. Of course, to follow the trend, her first new Pokemon would be Hisuian Decidueye. This Pokemon is one that has become sturdy due to spending time in Hisui's harsh climates. It actually reminds me of Platinum's own story of going from a pampered princess to a strong, reliable battler. Also, if you've noticed, the starter Pokemon I've picked for these guys are all super effective on their original starters. This wasn't intentional, but a cool detail. After Decidueye, we have Hisuian Lilligant, another Pokemon that grew stronger through spending time in harsh climates. In this case, Lilligant's well-developed legs from being in the snow. I know this would mean that Platinum would have 2 grass fighting types, but I think these Pokemon really suit her, so they have to be on her team. Her having a Hisuian Lilligant also would act as her noble representative of her team, as in the games we also see a noble Lilligant. Next we have a Pokemon that some might disagree with, being Weirdeer. This Pokemon would be Platinum's representative of a new Pokemon. The reason why I picked this Pokemon is due to it being well respected by the people of Hisui. In fact, it's one of the few Pokemon that the people actually interact with. When Weirdeer sheds its fur, this fur can be used for clothing and is very highly valued. This respect reminds me that Platinum is also from a well-respected lineage herself, being the Burlitz family. And when I look at Weirdeer, everything about it screams noble and upper class to me. And for Platinum's final Pokemon, I had to give her Hisuian Zoroark. A super cool Pokemon that's known for being very aggressive. But if you can make a family-like bond with this Pokemon, it would be an invaluable ally. The reason why this Pokemon is aggressive is because it got chased out by humans as a Zoroark and then died. But its spirit carried on and turned into this ghostly Zoroark. This made it be filled with malice and hatred for humans. As I mentioned, if you can create a bond with this Pokemon, it will work well with you. And to do that, you have to be understanding of its situation. And Platinum's role is literally the understander. I believe Platinum can piece things together and find out why Hisuian Zoroark is like this. Eventually, after learning and understanding their rough past, befriending one that would eventually evolve into a Hisuian Zoroark. And that's all the Pokemon I think would work well for each of the Sinnoh Dex Order's potential Hisuian teams. There are a couple of other Pokemons that I think you could swap around, like adding Basculegion or Hisuian Arcanine onto Pearl's team, but other than that, I'm pretty happy with my choices. Let me know in the comment section below if you agree with me, and if you don't, let me know what Pokemon you would give them instead. If you did enjoy this, also let me know in the comments if you'd like to see a full what if on the Hisuian arc, as we probably won't be getting one anytime soon. Or ever maybe. With all that said and done, thanks for watching this video, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Take care.